The first time you need to go into this place, it does not look like the most dangerous place on a warship. It just looks like more hard work. But the deeper you go, the noise turns more and more muffled, as if the ocean itself is pressing a palm over your ears. The sailor guiding you down speaks the way sailors often do when they are trying to make the fear behave. Keep your head, keep your hands to yourself, do it by the book. He points out the rules, the rituals. This is the magazine world, the handling rooms, the spaces that exist to feed turrets and guns. It is not glamorous, not heroic, not the sort of place people imagine when they picture war at sea. And yet, again and again, this is where a warship's fate can be decided in a heartbeat. Because if fire gets in here, there is no bravery strong enough to wrestle it back out. In peacetime, routine makes it feel safe. The men who work these spaces learn a rhythm. The scuttles open, the cartridges pass by, the doors shut again, and the flash protection does its quiet job. The ship's heart beats through drills and checklists until people start believing the rules are a wall. But war has a way of making walls paper thin. In the First World War, the British battlecruisers were fast, hard-hitting, and admired. They were also hungry for rate of fire. In the heat of a gunnery duel, every second mattered, and every delay felt like defeat. So men learned to keep charges close, to keep shells ready, to keep the system fed like a furnace. The most dangerous place on a warship became even more dangerous, not because the design changed, but because human beings under pressure began to bend the rules. That is how it often starts. Not with evil, not with stupidity, but with urgency. On the 31st of May, 1916, at Jutland, HMS Queen Mary fought in a sky full of smoke where the horizon was broken into gun flashes and drifting ships. She was one of the proud battlecruisers of the Royal Navy, built for speed and power. But then disaster, a shell struck near a turret's working area, ignited propellant that had been kept ready for fast firing, and then the flash ran down into the magazine. That word matters, flash. A shell does not need to hit the magazine itself. It only needs to open a path. A turret is fed by a chain of spaces, working chambers, handling rooms, hoists, and trunks. If flame runs down that chain, it becomes a living thing, racing towards stored propellant. Once it arrives, the ship does not sink in the way people imagine. The ship is simply torn apart. A warship's magazine is like the bottom of a waterfall. Everything above it, every damaged door, every shortcut, every charge stacked too near a hoist, can send fire tumbling down. And when it reaches the bottom, it does not splash. It detonates. On the 24th of May, 1941, HMS Hood met Bismarck in the Denmark Strait. Hood was a legend in her own right, a flagship, and the kind of ship whose name could steady a nation. A signalman named Ted Briggs was there, and later he described the moment with a clarity that makes your stomach tighten. He said he did not hear a huge explosion at first. What he saw was a gigantic sheet of flame that swept around the compass platform and threw men off their feet. That detail matters. People expect a bang. They expect sound. But sometimes the first thing you notice is fire, sudden and impossible, like the sun has risen at the wrong angle. He described the ship listing and the awful understanding that she had been hit in a way that could not be fixed. Moments later the ship was gone. When Hood died, she died fast, and she took almost everyone with her, and over 1,000 men vanished in minutes. The sea did not have time to become a battlefield, it became a grave. And the survivors, only 3, found themselves alive in a place where being alive felt unreal, like waking up in a room after the house has burned down. Not every famous explosion begins with a shell punching into a turret. Sometimes the path is made by torpedoes, or by the sea itself forcing its way inside. On the 25th of November, 1941, HMS Barham was struck in the Mediterranean. The ship took heavy damage on one side and began to list quickly, the kind of list that tells every sailor the same message: our ship will sink. When the lights go out, the steel labyrinth becomes darker, hotter, and more confusing. Escape routes become guesses. Doors jam. Ladders tilt. The sea pushes through like an intruder with endless strength. And if the list continues, the danger deep in the ship becomes a trap. Water moves downhill, men move uphill, smoke moves everywhere. Barham later suffered a catastrophic explosion so violent it became one of the most famous pieces of film from the war. A towering column of flame turned a battleship into a brief, terrible monument. The footage is famous, but the survivors' words are what stay with you, because they describe the moment the ship stopped being a warship and became a falling building. That is what it feels like when a ship dies. Not like sinking, like collapsing. On the 7th of December, 1941, USS Arizona lay at Pearl Harbor. The morning began like other mornings, with routines and small talk, the kind of day where the ship feels like a floating neighborhood. A sailor who survived that day later described the speed of it. The attack began, and within minutes a bomb struck forward, reaching the ship's stored ammunition. The explosion that followed was so massive it seemed to lift the ship and tear her open in one savage breath. The Arizona story is often told as a single flash, a single plume, a single moment. But for the men there, it was also a chain of details: the scream of aircraft, the hard smack of impacts, the sudden extreme heat that makes your skin feel shrunken and too small, the air full of burning fragments. A magazine explosion is not just a blast, it is the ship's complete purpose for existing, turning inward on itself. It is easy to focus on the guns, the armor, the ship's trading blows on the horizon. But again and again, war at sea is decided by what happens inside the ship, below the deck, where fire must never be allowed to go. That is why these spaces are treated with such strict discipline. That is why sailors respect them. And that is why, on the worst days, the fate of a warship can come down to seconds, doors, and a single path opened where it should not have existed. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.